Too many people apologise these days. Every thought or chance remark from a public figure, especially if it's one that contains an uncomfortable truth, is all too often retracted in a grovelling about turn. Endlessly saying sorry for things that you actually think is another hellish byproduct of the cancel culture. People are now cancelling themselves before someone else does it for them. Health Secretary Sajid Javid, the Saj, has rightly struck a very different tone in relation to the coronavirus pandemic. But he's had to row back from this tweet in which he said that we must not cower from the virus. He's apologised because apparently that's insensitive to say that we mustn't cower from the virus. Now, I don't think he should be criticised for this remark. He should be praised. It's heroic language. COVID is a nasty virus and highly transmissible, absolutely, but non-fatal to most people. At least a third have no symptoms at all. You respect it, sure, and judge the risk for yourself. But you don't cower. Most of the media and our politicians have, for 17 months, overstated the huge threat from the virus whilst ignoring far worse illnesses like cancer and turning a blind eye to the colossal damage of lockdowns. So I was delighted to see the Saj put the virus in its place. Not even in the top 20 killers in the country now, with a sad average age of death of over 80, and every death, of course, is a tragedy. In my view, measures to control the virus have likely been far worse than the disease itself. So the Saj wants us to get back to normal life and live with the virus, and whilst he has apologised, I will shout his message from the rooftops. On this programme, I'm uncancelling him, and I'm unapologising for his tweet. So let's enjoy it. Let's think about what he had to say. We must not cower. There's the tweet. Let's just suck it up for a moment. For 17 months, cower is what we have done, the price for which we will be paying for years, if not decades to come. Millions of healthy Brits who faced no serious statistical threat from the virus have indeed cowered in fear, hidden behind the sofa, and treated the virus like the bubonic plague. It's absurd and scientifically wrong for the vast majority of the population to be absolutely terrified of COVID, particularly with the key vulnerable groups now vaccinated. So if you think this is the apocalypse, then curtail your own liberties, lock yourself down, and cover your own face. But after 17 months of this madness, don't extend your franchise of fear to the rest of us. The millions who want to hug their friends and family, get back to work, contribute to the economy, breathe freely, go to the cinema, get drunk and live their lives. So well done, the Saj. Great tweet, we must not cower. And you're uncancelled. Meanwhile, ITV's Robert Peston has got himself in hot water. I don't imagine he'll be apologising. He has tweeted that the government health authorities are underreporting COVID infections. I'm delighted to say his tweet has been swiftly rebuked by Public Health England, and rightly so. But why this desire to see higher figures for infection rates? Because it perpetuates the fear narrative that so many in the media want to carry on going. Have you ever heard a journalist at one of those government press conferences ever ask why COVID restrictions weren't lifted more quickly, why freedom wasn't granted more readily? Have you ever heard them ask whether lockdowns were a huge mistake? Of course not. If I get a slot, that's what I'll be asking. Negativity, fear and bad news are like crack cocaine for the mainstream media. Just as the news gets better, including case rates falling significantly since Freedom Day, funny that, the media's desire to perpetuate an apocalyptic storyline grows. Now, I really don't want anyone to have a go at this lady, OK? It's what her bizarre photo represents. It's quite remarkable. Now, she is a local councillor and she tweeted the following: "I'm going to keep wearing my mask on public transport even when it's just me on the tube." And as you can see, she's masked up on an empty train. So if you had any doubts that measures like mask wearing were about more than stopping the virus, then this is Exhibit A. Former SAGE advisor Dr. Colin Axon told my brilliant colleague Dan Wootton on this network that masks are a comfort blanket. And I quote, "The best you can say about any mask is that any positive effect they do have is too small to be measured." Wow. So why wear one on an empty train? And why tell everyone about it? Because whilst we can debate their efficacy, and there are scientists who think that masks work, it's clear they've become a political statement, a badge, and a symbol of what a nice person you are. Well, I beg to differ. If you're wearing a mask on an empty train, you're not a nice person. You're a numpty. Meanwhile, there is an increasingly fine line now between conspiracy theories and common sense. Do you remember when some speculated about a lab leak in Wuhan early in the pandemic? They were labelled nutters. What about those highlighting possible cheap medications that could help with COVID symptoms, things like ivermectin, which are now being looked at? Just saying the I word a few months ago would invite a visit from the men in white coats. Concerns about the side effects of vaccines is perfectly reasonable in a free society, and we should have that conversation. Now, I'm pro-vaccine. Double jab, baby! But no vaccine is without risk, which is why it must be personal choice. This is why tyrannical plans for vaccine passports are completely unacceptable. If you're naive enough to think that the state won't utilise this infrastructure in other ways, then look no further than a story in The Telegraph this week. Boris Johnson is to launch a government-backed rewards programme for families switching to healthier food and exercising more. The scheme will monitor family supermarket spending and activity levels, allowing them to accumulate extra points, vouchers and rewards via, you guessed it, a new app on your phone. So there you go. You'll get grassed up by your own iPhone when you buy a cappuccino mousse from Waitrose, a bag of Walker's cheese and onion crisps, or a family pack of jammy Dodgers. Now that takes the biscuit. I'm worried about the state of public health. Personally, I agree with Dr. David Unwin, who I spoke to on this programme yesterday, who has reversed many of his patients' type 2 diabetes and managed to slim them down by cutting the sugar, processed carbohydrates and junk food from their diet. It worked for me. I lost 3 stone. Mrs. Dolan thinks I'm too thin. But I believe that we all want to get fitter and healthier. But the way we do it is through information, not instruction. Let's have a conversation about what's good to eat and what's not good to eat. But let's not live under the tyranny of our own smartphone. First of all, where's this money coming from to effectively pay people to eat salad? Let the public, armed with the information and, yes, support if they want it, decide for themselves. And let's educate kids at school properly about real food. But if you're saying that we can't occasionally indulge in some chicken McNuggets, a Greg's Cornish pasty, or a BK double whopper, then you can bugger off. This is GB News.